Yes, everybody, Russ on the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well, my friends. So, something a bit different today. Obviously, you know we are very much academy focused in terms of the West Ham Network with the Academy show every week. And obviously, on the last weekend, obviously we had the Luton game. We had Caelan Casey making his Premier League debut. We had George Earthy on the pitch, both of them from the age of 6 all the way up to the first team. So exactly how the academy should work. But a new book. It's my holiday reading. It is just been released by Paul Brand and Callum McNaughton, the former West Ham Academy player, and it's about the academy, all about the highs and lows. Paul was telling me 97% of academy players never play a Premier League minute or something like ridiculous like that. So it's all about what happens to the players who don't make it. We know very well about the players who do make it, but it's interesting, obviously, and I find it fascinating for the players who don't make it in terms of West Ham, what they do. And there's a number of players who have been interviewed here who had fantastic academy careers, but didn't quite make it into the first team. So let's bring in the authors, Paul, and I said former West Ham player, and Callum McNaughton, dialing in from the United States of America. Indeed. Not so glamorous for you, Paul, but for Callum it is.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure, guys. So let's talk about the book. We'll talk about the book first, then we'll talk about the academy and stuff like that. But obviously a real passion project for both of you, particularly for you, Callum, obviously coming from that world. But from you, Paul, what was the idea about sort of the book itself?
I was coming at it from very much a fan's perspective. So we hear all the time, don't we, about throw the kids in. They've got to be better than what's on there already. And for me, I guess, I sympathise with the frustration of that. But also when you say throw the kids in, I think it kind of underestimates the sacrifice and what it actually takes to make it as a Premier League footballer. So a lot of us fans had the dreams perhaps when we and so I just wanted to investigate it a little bit more fully. And so it was very much a fan's perspective of what does actually go on in the academy and what are the sacrifices required. And as you've already said, what happens to the many that fall by the wayside.
Yeah. And obviously, Callum, coming from that side of the fence, obviously, you could bring a lot to the project, obviously, in terms of experiences with that.
Yeah, no, when Paul first reached out to me, I was really interested, obviously, with the project he had in mind. And honestly, I just felt compelled to write back to him. And since then, it sparked something in me, and it reconnected me with obviously the past I had, and it felt like a positive thing. So in the end, I just ran with it, and I'm very careful with everything I do. I'm pretty fastidious. I'm always making sure like I'm doing the right thing and making sure living a positive life, and this felt on the path to that. So I felt like stories are really important to be told, and if it can help one person, then it's worth it.
Yeah. And was it true, Paul, what I said? Was it not, because you mentioned in that when we were talking, was it like 97% or something like that of academy players never play a Premier League minute?
Yeah, I believe that's the statistic that came up from there. Was a review of the elite player performance plan.
Crazy.
It's been running for 10 years. But
absolutely crazy.
It puts it into perspective, doesn't it? When
it really does.
How many fall by the wayside. And also, something else when I was first thinking about the book was the same time Boot Dreams was being shown on, was it BBC Three?
Yes, yeah.
And Alexander Arnold has launched the After Academy, which is again about trying to give kids who've been in academies a leg up and a second chance, whether in a football career or elsewhere. So it kind of seemed quite relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, the spur before that was the fact that we got to the FA Youth Cup final again. That's really what got me thinking about it more deeply.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed to be something that was topical, not just to West Ham, but to the industry as a whole.
Oh, it is. I mean, we've obviously, we being part of, people will obviously have utopian views of what the academy was, what the academy is, and we've been fortunate to have, Tony Carr on multiple times, for example, talking about the academy and the role of the academy, how he sees it at West Ham, or how he sees it should have been at West Ham, as well as we've had quite a few of the 99 boys on, the likes of Izzy and Bertie and Adam Newton and people like that, and it is crazy when you see just how many people, and obviously by doing the stuff for me at the moment, we're working with the academy now. There's a lot of players like who were playing last Friday when we beat Blackburn 4-1, who probably won't play again for West Ham, as the retained lists and all that will happen. And it's incredible. It's actually, I was looking for some of the people you've registered, you've spoken to. We've obviously had the likes of, we've had Bertie on, we've had Paco on. Now Paco, old GG Craig, I actually work with his brother at work in my other job. So I've had him on before, old Paco, and he's doing great stuff in America, and it's incredible, some of these stories, isn't it? I mean, obviously yourselves, Callum, obviously, you're one of the few who actually got on the pitch as a first team player, making your first team debut. What was that like for yourself, at that time? Because obviously you'd been at the club for a long time, Harlow born boy. It must have been sort of wow.
Yeah, no, it's pretty surreal, to be honest. Like, I'd have flashbacks of like being on the field, and honestly, it felt like a movie. Like I was under the lights, the crowd was blacked out. There was just this wall of noise that I couldn't even hear myself shout, instructions on the field. And it was just one of the most exhilarating, well, probably the most exhilarating moment of my life, 45 minutes of my life. It was just incredible. It's everything I've been working towards. I made so many sacrifices to it. I just really wanted it. I just remember it being the only thing I really wanted. I put so many hours of work on my body, sort of my nutrition. I wouldn't go out with my mates. I just remember so many sacrifices leading up to that moment, and it was a pretty rocky road as well. Like in my time in the academy, because I struggled for consistency with my form, so I was pretty up and down until I got to sort of around the age of 19, when I managed to get some sort of self-control. So, it's like, oh, I might get released. Oh, now I'm doing really, really well. Captain of the reserves, training with the first team. So it was a pretty up and down ride, and it was a pretty emotional journey for myself, because, I had this thing I really, really, really wanted more than anything. But I had that internal battle of like, trying to hold it all together at the same time. Obviously everyone's got a different story, and that's why this book's amazing, because some people have a little bit more sort of mellow stories to say. Some people are a bit more up and down. So it's pretty cool. Like, you got all these players who are on the same journey with the same goal, and but obviously their environments and nature versus nurture. They're all going through these different things, but in the same environment. So it's pretty cool.
I get that. I mean, look at someone like, I know probably in recent years, although we did, get him from Chelsea, so to speak. But look at someone like Declan Rice, for example. Until the age of about 18, he was not viewed as the way. I don't think anyone at the age of 18 thought he was going to be where he is now.
Yeah.
But there was one point where I remember watching him for the under 18s where he just stood out, and he wasn't even like technically very good, technically head and shoulders above everyone, but he just had that quality. And even like now, you see, as I said, yourself working through and your inconsistency, and then it just clicked. You look at the current academy crop now. Lewis Orford, he's just got it. He's got it. George Earth, he's got it. And then some others will become late bloomers. And it must have been having that sort of worry of being released over you must be a constant worry going through each year for the academy, really, until obviously you get pro deal. And even then it's based on how many years you've got. It must be really mentally quite a bit of a head fuck, really.
Yeah. I'd say with me, it was like, it's strange because at some moments I was like, I was really confident. I was like, had a swagger, and then I'd have a down where I'm like, oh God, like, I'm starting to worry again,
Yeah.
So I think, and it's funny you mentioned Declan Rice, because I'm a coach now. I've been coaching for the last 6 years here in the States, and I use Declan Rice as an example a lot, just in regards to his temperament and how he carries himself. He's not this player who, sets the world alight, like with step overs, with, some of the things he can do, like, are outrageous that many people can't. But what he does, he seems like he has it together. He's like a man, like, inside, and through that, like, focus. And it's just incredibly effective. And I like I said, I teach it to my kids all the time. There's so many players that are very good, but what separates someone who goes on to be a Declan Rice or extremely successful is like the internal world you have, how you manage your life, and these are all things within our control. As simple as that, your nutrition, the relationship you have, are they positive relationships? Are you, there's so many things outside of football that can affect our performance on the field. Definitely. So, I've seen, Terry Dixon springs to mind. I was at West Ham and we bought him from Tottenham for big money. So a 19-year-old, he had a couple of ACL injuries or something, but he was just incredible in training. He's flicking balls in top corner time and time again, just having a laugh about it. And like, all the first team were like, oh my god, like, he's just doing this with such ease. But like, he didn't, from what I saw and what other people saw, he just didn't have it together internally. And he not to speak bad about anyone, but he wouldn't do the right things off the field. And like, you could tell he would just be struggling inside and like with his emotional life. And I'm not sure where he is now, but he definitely didn't fulfill the potential that everyone thought he had.
No. It's a similar thing to, I mean, we've had Ravel Morrison, for example. He another classic example, world at his feet. And we, you constantly speak to, I know, Nolan and Noble about who's the best player you played with, and most of them say Ravel Morrison, but it's having the skill is only one part, isn't it? It's just having that sort of groundedness and having that set up is so true.
I think it's
plenty of. Sorry, Paul.
Conor Oaker says in the book about when asked to provide advice, he says it's just too nuanced. There's too much going on to say you need to do this or you need to do that. Everyone's different, and I referred to the book a few times about sliding doors moments. And you do think about some of the careers and how different they could have been just under small changes in circumstances.
Definitely, I think it was. I think when we had Izzy on the channel, he said that he was basically, he had the nod. He was going to be making the step up. Then he gets injured, and that basically curtailed that, because then someone else is there to take his place, and then eventually he ends up having to leave to get a career. It's quite interesting when you see you speak to a lot of these people like him, Lee Hodges, yourself, Callum, the guys who have gone away from West Ham to have a career elsewhere. And just look at some of these players, some of the guys you've interviewed, obviously, Taylor Tom Bedes, obviously that's sort of come back full circle as well, and he's more involved in the club now. Obviously Joe, we've had Joe on, and obviously he came, and his story would be very different from someone else's because he came from from his dad's background as well, and so it's fascinating. Every journey is different, isn't it? And the level of progression, not just from a mental perspective, but from a physical perspective. I mean, that's my issue with the current squad at the moment of academy players is they technically George Earthy is head and shoulders above Thomas Souček, but physically Thomas Souček would eat him alive. And I think that's the trouble now. It's having the skill. And at the moment, obviously, you played reserve team football, and that's something which a lot of people have seen the detriment of maybe the academy players coming through was when the reserve team football stopped and the PL2 started, where kids are basically playing their age group until the ages of 21, 22, and then play men's football. From your perspective, playing reserve team football, playing with those first teamers, those guys coming back from injury, that must have been an invaluable experience that you had during that time playing reserve team football.
Yeah, 100%. I have quite fond memories actually. I built up some good relationships with some of the guys that used to play regularly from the first team. Julian Falbert, Elunga. I remember played with Winston Reid quite a lot, George McCartney, the players that weren't getting that regular first team football were getting some regular reserve team football. And it was like a kind of a nice transition into the first team, really, when you think about it. So it's, for the young boys coming up to just be around sort of first team players and first team mannerisms. It helps you sort of make that jump from the reserve team into the first team that bit smoother, because you sort of you pick up patterns of behavior, and you just sort of ease yourself into sort of the characteristics of first team behavior, really.
The coach is not instilling that into you anyway, though, Callum, because we've got a couple of stories in the book about reserve team players not being the perfect role models. So
yeah,
the coach is not kind of help prepare you for that anyway. I mean, I know it's a big step up still.
Yeah, no, I think they do prepare you, because you're, say for example, when you're training, you have the reserve team next to the first team, so you're sort of around it that way. You're sort of rubbing shoulders with them in the canteen, around the training ground, in the gym. You'll cross paths with them, but no, so they do prepare you in that aspect. But I think that the act of actually playing with them and training with them regularly, I think there's no closer experience, I suppose, than to up to the first team and playing with them in the first team game. So it's it's like that exposure, isn't it? Like you can be exposed to them sort of around the training ground, just walking here and there, and you can be exposed to them on the practice field, but practice to playing games is very different, as everyone knows. So then that exposure to playing games with them, it's just another step to feeling more comfortable and feeling more rhythm and being more natural to when you do play with them in the first team. And that a lot of that time when I played with first team members in the reserve team was under Avram Grant, and he was pretty heavy on, if you're not getting minutes in the first team, you're going to get minutes in the reserve team. Like that's pretty compulsory. That was his rule. So I think it kept the first teams on their toes to say, you're not just going to get a day off. You're going to work hard. You're going to, help bring through the rest of the guys as well. But I do remember that being a very happy experience, actually. Like, having a run of first team games where I was captain. It's like 8 games. I think 8 games. And I was playing with Robbie Keane. I was playing with Kieran Dyer. I was playing with Jack Collison, Freddie Sears, Winston Reid, John Carew. from Valencia, who played in the Champions League, you know. So it was it's very happy memories, and they were just normal people, and they were good as well. They talked to us younger lads, and they helped us through. They gave us like words of wisdom to help us as well. So
I just think
then is, sorry, Russ, I was going to say, why do away with the reserve league?
I don't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
people do bemoan it. I mean, it was to do with bringing in the elite player performance model. The idea of giving youngsters more time to progress in their own age categories. And when you look at some of the youth that England have brought through since that occurred, it'd be hard to say that it's not working.
It's true.
But,
yeah,
Tony Carr said he thought the future was England would adopt the European model where reserve teams will play lower down the league.
Yeah,
I don't know that I can ever see that happening with the fans, but
no. It's one of those things where it's. I mean, I remember having we had Timmy Breaker on, and obviously Tim still does a lot of scouting. And the trouble is now, I think with the current system is those players have to be even more stand out to make an impression on their team. So it is Phil Foden, Cole Palmer. I mean, Cole Palmer had to leave to get game time, but we can put that Declan Rice, Saka. These guys are world class. Well, pretty much world class players now. Whereas I think beforehand, you could. I mean, now you can go to. I think Tim made a good point. You can invest in a player from the age of, take George Murphy from 6 onwards, or you can go to France now and buy a player who's the same age now as George Murphy, but probably got about 80 appearances under his name, and he's already set up to go. And I think that's always an issue. I think you have to be even that more of a standout player to make it now into a regularly. I mean, I know Moyes has gone, and obviously Moyes' tenure has come to an end, and but I think he still gave something like 22 academy players their first team debuts. But only one of them was a debut in the Premier League, which was Ngakia against Liverpool at right back. Fucking hell, against Salah. Jesus. But that's the next step, isn't it? It's not about giving the kids a chance. It's about how then they become a Declan Rice, how they become a Ben Johnson, 50 odd appearances under his name. Even now he wants to move on because the opportunities aren't there for him. Under Julian Lopetegui, it may well change. You may get more. I did a piece the other day. I think there's about 10 players in the academy who could step up potentially this next year. Or at least go out on loan. And I think that's the idea now. Where under Callum's, in Callum's time, it was very much reserve team football, learning the nuances of being a first team player, being around the first team setup. Now we've got to utilise the loan market for that now. But even that doesn't work. We've had Freddie Potts success, loan deal, Callum Marshall not a success. So it's I find it all fascinating. Was there anything in the book? Was there any stories which really took you by surprise, or some just made your jaw drop? Because that happens with me. I mean, we've had over 100 ex-players on the channel, and some stories just still make my jaw drop or make me cry. To be honest,
I think for me,
Callum, go on. You answer as a pro.
I think for me, Darren blew me away.
Yeah.
I mean, both Paul and I, weren't expecting the story we got. And it was very, very vulnerable, very brave to speak about it. It's a pretty dark story. But I mean, it shows how crazy the mind is really, in terms of how important it is to have everything together sort of off the field, sort of have a healthy life off the field. But yeah, there's substance abuse in there. There's near suicide. There's near murder, which is like it's I mean it's yeah. I mean it blew me away. But also with that darkness, like to come back from that, the mental battles that Darren had, is incredibly inspiring as well, because it also shows you that no matter how low you can go in terms of like, no matter how much you're struggling for whatever reason, there's always a light, and not to give up on that light, and to fight for life, basically. It gets down to the nitty gritty of it. It's yeah, it sounds pretty dramatic, but it's like, it's life and death. If we don't have like control over our minds and our emotions, and we don't manage ourselves, it can lead to very dark places. But yeah, like to see the struggles that Darren had, and then to see his like resilience to overcome those struggles, and to not give up on that light, was pretty inspiring, and very eye-opening, and it really touched you.
Yeah, I've done some preliminary research online, so it's not so much that it was surprising, but just to reiterate what Callum said, to get people willing to open up and speak about their experiences, which are pretty horrific in some cases, and yet Darren, I mean, he does it with such humour, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's there, and there's dark and light in the same story. It's just brilliant.
And do you know what about Darren as well? We're getting Darren on the channel in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully. And he's it's almost like recently, as a result of this interview, I don't know, but when you talk to him, he's really been embraced back into the club again. So there's like an academy wall he was signing the other day. I've seen him quite a lot at the under-21 games, and Kenny sort of said to him, come down for a cup of tea whenever, and obviously they're trying to get in doing the coaching and stuff like that. And it really does, it's things like really put things in perspective. We had Joe Cole on a while ago, and obviously a success in terms of academy success, and talking about, I don't know if you remember, Paul, but I remember when he was signed on the pitch. They used to sign the kids on the pitch, 16-year-old. I think we actually were playing Chelsea that day, on the pitch, signing his life away. And I think Jeremy was on the announcement saying, remember this day, and it's like, and I said, what did the 16-year-old Joe Cole think at the time when I was shit scared? And in fact, nowadays with all sort of the mental health training and stuff like that, I don't think we'd have had any of that pressure on me at such a young age. And that was such a you think someone like Joe, who's like been there, done that, still talks about that in slightly unfriendly terms, and I get that totally.
We desperately wanted to speak to some of the current crop and the winners of last year's FA Youth Cup, and find out, what their hopes are for the future and how it's changed from what's gone before. And the club just put a stop to that.
Yeah.
So, no,
I mean, like,
the agent was quite keen.
The agent was quite keen. No reason why the agent was quite keen, but
no money coming from us, Russ, believe me.
But no,
safeguarding. As an ex-teacher as well, I was like, totally understand the safeguarding elements.
Yeah.
Where, we weren't offering any kind of threat. So we're trying to kind of provide a holistic overview. So we've got the downside, but I kind of wanted them to boost the optimism as well, to say, look, this is the current crop, and these are their hopes for the future.
Yeah, and from that respect, I think we've got I think we've got a good crop at the moment. As the 18s finished second in the under 18 league, the under 21s finished second in the PL2 South. Got a good crop coming through. There's some good players coming through as well. But I think it's important. But I think with West Ham fans, it's always about the academy of old, and that's why I think this book is brilliant, because it just gives a different perspective. We, as fans, you see the young names on the team sheet, but you don't know, as Callum says, what's gone behind it, the blood, sweat, and tears to even be on the team sheet. We see Lewis
It's
Orford,
great
and
how much we buy into it. The response to George Earthy's goal was fantastic.
yeah.
And it shows how much the academy and producing your own means to us as fans. But
Exactly.
it's a complex pathway.
And as I said, from the age of, George and Caelan at the end, they've both been there since they were 6 years old, and that is what West Ham Academy is about, isn't it? It's about having a West Ham fan from a young age make his way up to the, to the main league, to the first team, and to score as well. I mean, as I said, I put a tweet out almost exactly after he'd scored that goal against Luton. He scored an identical one last Friday against Blackburn. Late run into the box, little jink, and then puts it in from 2 yards. But no one watches that, so they don't know the fact that that's why it's important. That's why it's important to understand the academy and the history of the academy. Right? What's the best place for people to get this in terms of you getting a decent cut?
I don't think it makes any difference to our royalties, but I believe Amazon have already got it something like 15% reduced. So.
But it doesn't matter. It's a good holiday read. I'm going to be reading this on my holidays, and I'll pass it on to Dave from the Dubai Hammers so he can read it as well. Although you don't get the royalty, but I will, because it's a great story. As I said, Paul and Callum, a lot of work into that, a lot of into it, particularly the fact that Callum being in America. Although it's probably quite easy to speak to Paco because you'll be on the same time frame. But yeah, it's a great read, and been great chatting to you guys. I know you're both very, very busy, so I appreciate your time. We'll put the Amazon link in the description. And don't be a stranger. Come on whenever. And have a chat. It's always lovely to talk to everyone. But yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. Anything else? Any other promotion for the book? Anything else you want to mention about it?
If you like it, actually, even if you don't like it, if you can review it, that helps massively with the SEO and other people being able to find it. It's black magic of Google optimization.
Of course.
So,
we'll be all over that. And there'll be pictures of this outside the Burj Khalifa. Like me reading, I'm not in the Burj Khalifa. I'm not the YouTube domain isn't that good. But yeah, so definitely make sure you get that. I'll be reading that. And thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Callum, as well. I always feel like when I speak to an ex-player, so we've had over 100 on the channel. I always feel like, obviously you're in America and obviously the veterans, thank you for your service. I always feel like I should say that to a player. Thank you for all your dedication for being at West Ham and also AFC Wimbledon. I'm a big AFC Wimbledon fan as well.
Oh, you are?
My brother used to work with Ivor Heller, and so the commercial director. So I know him.
Ivor,
Ivor.
Yeah. He's a character, isn't he?
He is a character. He's salt of the earth, though. I've got a lot of respect for him. But yes, I always keep an eye out for AFC Wimbledon. But and that's it. That's all the connections I've got. So Paco and Ivor Heller. There we go. Anyway, guys, take care. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen. And also thank you for you guys. Link in the description. Get this book bought. Let's get it trending. Get it viral. I don't know if you want to get it viral, but yeah. Until next, get it out there, indeed, and tweet it. Let's get some good royalties in for the guys. They put a lot of hard work behind it, and it's a really good book. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for your time, geezers. I'm going to chuck you out, so don't worry, and we'll speak soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you. All right, there we go. Let's chuck them all out so they have to worry about pressing the buttons. There we go. He's gone. Thank you very much, people, as they keep an eye on the channel. And genuinely, I've just started to read it. This is a cracking book. It's about West Ham. It's about the academy. It's about something we all love. And it sort of pulls the curtain back on, it's called Inside the Academy. It's the highs, lows and heartbreaks of the West Ham youth. And as I said, really, really interesting book. Concentrates a lot on the sort of, as I said, some of the players they've interviewed. We said Dan Blewett. Who else have they interviewed on them? Just go a quick look. Svelin Angus, Bertie Brayley, friend of the channel, Paco, Craig, who we had on a long time ago. He was at, is it North Carolina now? In the one below the MLS. Hoffman and Elfdenson, Will Greenidge, who's only just recently left, wasn't it? It was last season. Callum, obviously, Christian Montano, do you remember him? Joe Seeley, Connor Okus, Sam Taylor. We've got Taylor Tombidis and Dominic Voss as well. So really interesting. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Nice little chat about the academy. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about the academy, about reserve team football, the old combinations league. And until next time, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith, my bloody friends. See you soon. Much love. Bye bye.